You are listening to Lifted You Weight Loss with Annie Jensen, episode number 21, Your Emotional Thermostat. Hello, darling. I'm Annie, and I'm here to connect with you. I know we understand each other. We show up, we live hard, and you and I do all of it, carrying the same burden. But here is the most beautiful truth that I've learned over years of struggling with my weight. We do not have to live with this burden. So come with me because you are not alone in this. I'm ready to share everything. My story, my friendship, and every piece of value I've gathered along the way. My purpose is to lift you as you move forward on your own path to light, loving, and lasting weight loss and build something that finally works for you. Darling, there is a life waiting for you on the other side of this process. So let's ease this burden. Let's build what's already within you. Together we'll create a lighter, lifted you. One skill I am working on, and it is easier sometimes than others for sure, is recognizing the value in an experience that may have been hard, keeping that and letting everything else go. Because remember, the past literally does not exist. It's kind of a crazy concept, and we haven't talked about it a ton, but we will. But something that has really made my life lighter, especially in this area of weight loss, is letting go of the heavy in the past and keeping the value. And we're going to do that a little bit today as we start to talk about some sweet baby monkeys that went through something really hard 70 years ago, but in doing so, they gave us some invaluable lessons. So yes, do you remember Dr. Harry Harlow in the 1950s who raised some sweet baby monkeys in isolation for a while to learn about the importance of maternal contact and the primal need for attachment? In simple terms, if you'll remember, Dr. Harlow's baby monkeys were removed from their mothers at birth and placed with inanimate mothers. Some of the mothers were simply covered in a soft cloth. The others had no cloth, but they provided milk that the babies could drink. And guess what happened? Do you remember? Even though the cloth mothers met no physical needs for the baby monkeys, they attached to and preferred the cloth mothers over the mothers who had milk. They wanted that softness, that touch, that attachment. This experiment led to a deeper understanding of some of our most basic emotional and attachment needs as primates. Last week, if you will remember, I introduced Kimmie Jackson's universal human needs, which are that every human being has the need to feel these three categories. Number 1, loved and accepted. Number 2, understood and validated. And number 3, every human being needs to feel good enough and capable. In this layer of emotional intelligence, we're learning how to find and to meet those needs for ourselves in order to move forward on our weight loss path. Let's talk about where Kimmie's work came from, what it was inspired from. In her work, Kimmie credits the founders and the developers of the psychological framework called attachment theory, which teaches that all humans are born with an innate need to form emotional bonds with their caregivers. Attachment theory dates all the way back to Dr. Harlow and his monkeys. And between then and now, several mental health professionals have contributed to its development and its implementation in our culture and our lives. Doctors John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth are two of these contributors, and especially Dr. Sue Johnson, who really started to teach that adults have many of these same attachment needs that infants do. And that's what we're learning here. So here we are. Years and years later, we're using the value of Dr. Harlow's experiment and the brilliance that's found in attachment theory to develop our own emotional intelligence. So yes, those sweet baby monkeys had a hard time for a while. It makes me sad to think of them without their mommies. But the lessons that we can take from what Dr. Harlow learned are incredible. Because of them, we are going to be able to better meet our own needs and the needs of our loved ones while making progress on our weight loss, which is exactly what we want. So now you and I can use our emotions as well as these emotional needs as guides on our weight loss journey. Today, I would like us to think of our emotions as a thermostat, like one of those old-fashioned ones that has the bulb on the bottom, okay? Just like a thermostat reads an environment and it communicates what it finds, your emotions are constantly reading your internal world, and they're sending you information all day, every day. They are not random. They're trying to tell you something about your experience, your needs, and what may need your attention in the moment. So just like a thermostat reading helps you decide whether you need to turn up the heat or open a window, these universal emotional needs help you understand what your emotions are communicating and how to respond in a helpful way. So we now have a foundational tool that we can put in our weight loss toolkit, our emotional thermostat, your emotions plus the knowledge of these emotional needs. You have a guidance system to help you realize what you need and then respond intentionally. So today we're going to go through that process of recognizing an emotion, hearing it, decoding it to what it's telling us, and then responding appropriately to meet the need and move us forward. And if you'll remember, I explained a few weeks ago, maybe even a couple weeks ago, that developing your emotional intelligence is not only going to help make weight loss easier, it is going to help you grow as a person. Learning and then really understanding these human needs and then seeing yourself and the world around you through that lens, it just increases your capacity to lift yourself and others. It's knowledge, and it expands your perspective, and it deepens your empathy for yourself and for others. When we can remember to see these needs in ourselves and others in our daily lives, we will be living in a brighter sense of clarity because we'll know what's really going on. And then when we can recognize emotions and see which needs they are pointing us to, we have a clear path ahead of us because they sharpen our view both on our weight loss journey and just in life as a whole. So cool. So where do we start? If you'll remember, we've talked about how making identity-based change, especially in weight loss, starts by looking for places where we are stuck. Now, sometimes we just know we are stuck. We can feel it. Other times, our lens has become so foggy, maybe we have been living a certain way for so long, or we are just plowing through life, ignoring things, that we can't even see our stuckness. We can't see where it starts and where it stops. In either case, whether we know or we don't, or we kind of know, but we don't know how to take care of it, we are usually stuck because something is missing in our life or because something is blocking our path. So our job is to notice this, is to find it, to understand what is happening, and then learn to do what is needed to move forward and make progress. All right? And our emotions are a really great way to help us find the stuckness, find the root of it, and then know how to move forward. Now, I've described this stuckness in different ways before here. If you've been with me for a while, you've heard me describe it in different ways. Areas where we are stuck on our weight loss path and we just are having a hard time moving through it. All right? I've described them as obstructions on your weight loss path, and we've learned how to neutralize them, to take all the yucky, heavy meaning out of them and just flick them off our path, kick them to the side so we can move through them. We've talked about them being bugs in your mental processing, thoughts, patterns where you're just stuck and your brain is kind of skipping, or it's a thought that you've had for years and years and years, something that you've come to accept as the truth, but it's not. I've described it as a foggy lens where you need to put on somebody else's glasses to see the truth or defog your lens somehow. And all of it can be described as errors in your weight identity. Okay? And often, this is what we're going to learn, is that when we find this area of stuckness, we can often trace it back to a personal need that is going unmet. That's what we're going to work on today. Very cool. We're going to stay on a kind of surfaced level. When I start coaching, we're going to get into it deeper, but this is something that you can learn to do for yourself, and you can do it with anything in your life. All right, we're going to talk about recognizing the stuckness. There are several ways that you can begin to recognize where you are stuck. What I like to do is to take some quiet time and reflect. There's genuine value here because so often we are pushing ourselves through the day on autopilot, or even if we're not pushing ourselves, we're ignoring certain parts of our life. We're in denial, or we're paralyzed by shame. All right, taking some quiet time to really reflect and be open and honest with yourself can lead you to a place where you are stuck and you may not be taking care of yourself well enough to move through it. So, some quiet time with a notes app open or a pen and paper in hand can be an excellent place to start to look for areas of stuckness. A good conversation with a trusted partner or a friend or a family member, someone you can just open up to, unfiltered, and just spill your guts. That's always a good place. Things will come out that you didn't know were in there. And if this doesn't happen, if we don't take the time to do this, our everyday doings will show us our weight loss obstructions, okay? Remember, our emotions will get louder if we don't listen to them. So they will pop up. Habits will continue. We will feel emotions trying to communicate with us. If we get on the scale, that's always a place that gives us some feedback. Our real lives will give us information. So, however you do find the stuckness, the key is to use your developing skill of emotional intelligence to help you move through it. The goal is to recognize your emotions and discover what they are telling you, and then go from there. Remember, they're one of the clearest indicators of what you may need in order to move through that stuckness and come out better on the other side, which is what we all want. Feels so good when we make progress like that. So here is a 3-step process to help you read your emotional thermostat and respond accordingly. Just like in the winter when you're like, why is it so cold in here? And you go to your thermostat and it says 63 and you're like, what the heck? And you turn it up. That's the same thing as listening to an emotion tell you there's something going on and responding to help resolve that feeling. Now, the first 2 steps of this process are from my sister Kimmie, and then the third step you are familiar with. The third step is the connect, check, and go. Okay? So here is a process that will help you recognize and fulfill a need while continuing to move forward on your weight loss path. All right? Step 1 is called name it to tame it. You're going to name the emotion to tame the emotion. Step 2 is you're going to zoom in and decode that emotion. You're going to zoom into what you're feeling and trace it back to the emotional need that needs attention from you. And then that third step is connect, check, and go. Remember, that's your foolproof plan where you connect with yourself on the inside. You become present in the moment. You make a plan that is appealing, possible, and moves you forward. And then you go. All right? So I'll go through it again. This is a 3-step process to help you recognize and fulfill an emotional need while moving forward on your weight loss path. First thing we're going to do is we're going to name it to tame it. If you can give that emotion a name, you're already on your way to resolving what's going on. Instead of just feeling a feeling, you're giving that feeling a name, which gives it a purpose. Then you're going to zoom in on that feeling and you're going to decode it. What is it telling you? You're going to trace that feeling to an emotional need that needs attention. And lastly, you're going to make a plan to meet that need and you're going to move and go. You're going to connect, check, and go. Let's walk through it together. So when you notice yourself feeling something inside, maybe it's a misplaced desire for food. You know you're not hungry, but you're feeling that urge for food. Maybe you're feeling discouraged, or you're simply feeling frustrated, which my sister calls a lazy emotion because it's not specific, but it's a good place to start. Pause and identify the emotion. Just naming it activates the thinking part of your brain, and it helps reduce the emotional reactivity that we sometimes live in. So you're going to ask yourself, am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling frustrated or discouraged? Then you can zoom in further and get even more specific. The more specific you are, the better chance you have of finding the source of the emotion and the need that needs attention. Am I feeling lonely or resentful, anxious, maybe just tired? Look, you've already made progress just naming that emotion. You've moved from being consumed by the emotion and not necessarily knowing what's going on to observing it. And remember, that emotion is information for you. So your job here is not to judge yourself or the emotion. It's simply to notice it. Then you have put yourself in a position to move to step number 2, which is to zoom in and decode. It's time to get curious about what this emotion is telling you. You're asking yourself, what's really going on with this? You're going to get some clarity here. So let's take an example. Let's imagine that you have come home after a long day of work, or a long day with kids, or a long day driving. However that looks for you, you are happy to be home. You walk through the door, you walk into the kitchen, and right away you notice a fresh plate of chocolate chip cookies. You take a closer look and you can tell right away that they are soft. The distribution of the chocolate chips throughout the dough is perfect, and there are just the right amount of them in just the right places. Well, instantly, you feel a desire for one of those cookies rise up into your consciousness. The desire feels strong, it feels pressing, and it's telling you that if you don't eat one of those cookies, you actually might not make it through the rest of the evening. Your day was exhausting, you did everything for everyone, and you want this cookie right now. Can you relate? Now, I'll just pause for a second and say that yes, I know that just one cookie is not a big deal. It can be easily worked into a weight loss plan, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Okay, today that cookie is not planned. Eating it would not be a good choice for you. And you don't want to let your lower brain be the boss of you. You want to honor what you have decided to do for that day, and eating that cookie is not part of it. And here's the thing. You know you don't really want that cookie. It's impulsive, and you're doing everything you can to move you toward your goals. And you know that cookie is going to shift your trajectory. If you eat it, you're likely going to regret it, and then you might eat like 5 or 6 of them because you feel like crap. So part of you wants the cookie, the very familiar part that we know so well, but part of you doesn't. So we're going to zoom in onto the desire for that cookie, and we're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to decode it. So we're going to trace this feeling of intense desire back to one of your universal needs. Because remember, the emotion is the signal. The need is the message that you need to listen to. And your response to it is where your growth happens. It's where your weight loss happens. So at first glance, of course, it seems like this situation is about cookies. But what if it isn't? What if that cookie is not actually the need? I remember telling my sister, there is not another need. I feel desire. That is the feeling I feel. And she said, no, it isn't. Desire is a secondary emotion. That desire is telling you something else. So we're going to dig a little deeper. We're going to get a little more curious. Because what if that cookie is simply the proposed solution that your brain has come up with to meet a need? What are you really feeling? What do you really need? Am I feeling exhausted and craving validation for my long day? That is what I learned about myself. I was tired. I worked really hard, and I needed some validation. Or maybe you just need to feel understood. Maybe you're feeling unseen after pouring into everyone else all day. Or maybe you're feeling some yuckies about what the day held for you and you need to feel loved and accepted. Maybe you're feeling defeated because you didn't get everything done that you wanted to, and you need to feel that you're still good enough and that you're capable of doing what you need to do. Maybe, this is a good one too, maybe you're tired. And that cookie simply looks familiar and comforting, and this is your pattern of behavior. Remember, I told you that my weight struggle was a combination of various factors, unmet needs, and then I also explained that comfort and familiarity. All of that can bundle up together and present itself very nicely as an extremely strong desire for cookies. But we have to move beyond that surface emotion of desire and become curious about the need underneath it. This is the step where you read that thermostat. You're decoding the message behind the emotion. The goal of step 2 is to simply become aware of what need may be asking for attention in that moment. What is really going on? What do I really need? Remember, Bria asked herself that question when she was standing at the pantry that night. She was going to grab, I think it was Halloween candy, and she stopped herself and she said, what do I really need? And she said, I'm tired. I need to go to bed. All right, the last step in this 3-step process is connect, check, and go. So you've recognized an emotion. You've let it tell you something that you need. Maybe you haven't gotten to the base of everything, but you've recognized something. There are certainly layers and layers to all of this, and we'll get deeper into it. But you've recognized an emotion. You've let it lead you to something that you really need. And now we're going to connect with ourselves. We're going to separate ourselves out of the situation. You're going to connect to your consciousness. You're going to be present in that moment. And you're going to make your foolproof plan. Remember, your plan needs to be appealing. It needs to be possible. And it needs to meet that need and move you forward. That's the doer check. Remember, your doer will follow through with any plan that she feels like she can do, she wants to do, and will meet the need and move her forward. That's why Bria went to bed. But she also said, if I still want this chocolate in 10 minutes, I can come back and get it. That's how her plan moved her forward. It met her need. It was appealing for her. And it was also possible because she gave herself that little cushion where she could come back if she needed to. And then you go. Remember, you decide and you move. You make a decision and you move your doer forward. You take that small next step. This is how we are going to start to use our emotions as guides instead of obstacles. This is our emotional thermostat. Remember, your emotions are telling you what you need on the inside. They're like that thermostat. And then you use those emotional needs that we all have to answer the call of the emotion. Time for some final thoughts. I know this can feel messy. It can feel overwhelming, but the way you do it is you just make one connection and go from there. I feel drained because of this day. What do I need? You feel drained. What do you need? Here are a few examples of some of the needs you may have that you're maybe not answering. Here are some great ones. You may need compassion or understanding. You may need encouragement, acceptance, validation, and you may need rest. Remember when I told myself, I'm not mad at you? Those were 5 magic words because in those 5 magic words, I met all 6 of those emotional needs that I hadn't been giving myself. When I told myself, I'm not mad at you for all of the weight struggle, for all the years of back and forth and up and down and just feeling awful about things. When I said, I'm not mad at you, I met all of those needs at once. I'm not mad at you. I felt loved. I felt validated. I felt understood. I felt accepted. I felt good enough. And I felt capable of moving forward simply by those 5 words of love. So if you can take little steps in making this better for yourself, you can only start to feel the difference. Maybe you feel drained because of this day and you need some comfort. Or you say, I'm so happy to be home right now. That doesn't mean you need to eat cookies. That means maybe you need to go upstairs and have some quiet time to yourself or snuggle your baby. Being home doesn't have to mean eating food. It can mean living your life in so many other ways. I remember thinking, I'm so frustrated because it's April and my Valentine's decorations are still up. It's okay. I'm not mad at you. It doesn't mean you need to eat cookies. Okay? Maybe one of your kids isn't making the best choices and you feel that. Well, you need to know that you're a good mom, not eat cookies. You need to know that you do your best. You need to feel validated and good enough and capable of raising your kids. That's what you need, not cookies. Just start small. Feel a feeling. Zoom in. Identify it, name it to tame it, decode it to something that it's telling you that you need, and take a step towards that need. Take a step of movement toward meeting that need, and you will be taking a step of change toward your weight loss by meeting that need specifically instead of using food as a way to do it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need to feel all of those things. We need to feel good enough. We need to feel loved. We need to feel accepted. We need to feel understood. So find ways in your life to meet those needs. And I believe that the desire for food will start to fade. It won't be so loud and demanding. And then you'll know you're making real progress. I love you, my darling. Have a good week.